The army drill looked perfect until I counted one extra helmet. That was the part nobody wanted to hear. Not the missing radio check. Not the stretcher tag that had been signed before the patient reached the tent. Not the medical evacuation board that had been erased too early because the commander wanted the exercise wrapped before the visiting evaluators arrived. One extra helmet. That was the mistake that made the whole field go quiet. I was standing beside a folding command table at Pine Ridge Training Area, 48 years old, wearing Navy nurse scrubs under a gray medical field vest, holding a clipboard that everyone had ignored for 6 hours. The drill had ended 10 minutes earlier. At least, that was what the army captain running the lane kept saying. All casualties accounted for, Captain Voss announced, loud enough for the observer team to hear. Medical evacuation drill complete. Good work. Soldiers relaxed. Medics pulled off gloves. 2 instructors started laughing near the water station. Someone clapped a trainee on the back. The ambulance crew began closing the rear doors. And I looked at the gear table. 6 helmets had been returned. 5 soldiers were standing in the recovery area. 1 helmet sat alone near the edge of the table, wet grass stuck to the rim, chin strap torn, a smear of red training paint across the side. I pointed at it. Who does that belong to? Captain Voss glanced over like I had asked about a lost lunch bag. Gear gets mixed during drills, ma'am. Not like this. He smiled, but it was not kind. It was the kind of smile officers use when they want a civilian to remember the boundaries. This is a controlled exercise, he said. We have the count. I looked at the helmet again. Then at the evacuation board. Then at the empty stretcher rack. No, I said, you have the paperwork. The smile disappeared. Behind him, a few soldiers stopped packing. The battalion safety officer turned around. A young medic looked at the helmet and then quickly looked away, as if noticing it made him responsible. Captain Voss lowered his voice. Ms. Harper, the drill is complete. I held up the clipboard. A clean drill means everyone comes back, not just the paperwork. The field went still. Because somewhere beyond the tree line, in a drainage cut nobody had rechecked, a soldier was lying injured under a collapsed training barrier while the army packed up around his missing helmet. Before I tell you what happened when they finally reopened the count, ask yourself this. If everyone in authority said the exercise was over, would you trust the official board, or would you trust the one detail that did not belong? My name is Rachel Harper. I was a civilian nurse evaluator on temporary contract with the Army's medical training program. That title made me sound more important than people treated me. In practice, it meant I stood on training fields with a clipboard, watched medics rehearse casualty care, recorded delays, corrected unsafe habits, and got ignored by people who believed a nurse outside a hospital was basically a guest with opinions. I had spent 26 years in nursing, emergency rooms, rural trauma, disaster shelters, veterans outreach, hurricane evacuations, and military medical readiness programs. I took the contract because drills reveal truth. They show who counts carefully, who guesses, who signs early, and who thinks a missing name is someone else's problem. Pine Ridge Training Area was supposed to be routine. Large medical evacuation drill. Simulated vehicle accident. Multiple casualties. Patient movement. Accountability handoff. Mock medevac loading. A clean morning on paper. The kind of training event commanders love because it photographs well. Everything looked organized from a distance. I had learned to distrust organized from a distance. The main officer in charge was Captain Lucas Voss. 36, square-jawed, polished, and confident in the way people become when they have not yet been corrected by consequences. He was not incompetent. That would have been easier. Incompetent people at least know they are trying. Voss was competent enough to be dangerous. He knew the doctrine. He knew the briefing slides. He knew how to talk to senior officers. He knew how to make a drill look clean. What he did not know was how often clean presentations hide dirty counts. When I arrived at 6:30, he greeted me with a handshake and the thin patience of someone tolerating a requirement. "Ms. Harper," he said, "you'll be evaluating medical handoff, patient movement, and accountability." His eyes moved to my scrubs, then to my field vest, then to the clipboard. "Right, nurse evaluator." "Yes. We have assigned observers already." "I'm aware." "Then today should be easy." I looked past him at the staging area. A medic was placing casualty cards in a plastic bin. One card already had a status box checked before the drills started. I pointed. "Why is that card premarked?" Voss turned. The medic froze. Captain Voss's jaw tightened slightly. "Probably an admin prep error." Admin prep errors become patient errors. It is a simulation. That is where habits are born. He gave the first smile of the day. The boundary smile. "Noted." It was not noted. People say noted when they want a conversation to end without changing anything. The drills started at 800. The scenario was simple enough. A troop transport vehicle had rolled during a convoy lane. 7 simulated casualties, 2 walking wounded, 3 litter patients, 1 delayed evacuation, 1 observer role player who was supposed to move between sites to test communication. The observer was a real soldier, not a mannequin, assigned to act as a lightly injured training casualty if the scenario required it. His name was Specialist Evan Miller. I knew that because he introduced himself while everyone else was checking radios. He was 22, from Ohio, tall and thin, with nervous hands and a habit of apologizing when he had not done anything wrong. "Ma'am, do I sign this before or after I move to lane 3? He asked me, holding up a laminated roll card. I read it. "You do not sign anything until someone physically sees you and records your status." He nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am." "Do you understand why?" He hesitated. "So they know where I am. So they do not invent where you are." He smiled like he thought I was joking. I was not. Specialist Miller wore a helmet with a piece of red training tape on the side. The tape had been folded badly at one corner, making a little triangle that lifted in the wind. Details stick to me. I remember shoes. Tags. Bandage placement. The color of a pen someone uses on a board. The way a person says, "I'm fine," when they are not. That morning, I remembered Miller's helmet. The first half of the drill went smoothly enough to fool anyone who wanted to be fooled. Medics moved fast. Role players shouted. Smoke drifted across the lane. A young combat medic named Reyes did well at first. Checked breathing, controlled simulated bleeding, reassessed a patient who kept trying to stand, and corrected a trainee who wrote stable too early. Then senior observers arrived near the command tent, and Captain Voss got louder. Not because the scene needed it. Because observers make ambitious officers perform. "Keep the board moving," he called. "Status updates every 2 minutes." The numbers started clean. Then started drifting. That happens in every mass casualty exercise. Someone writes 7. Someone says 6. Someone moves a role player without updating the board. Someone assumes walking wounded have been counted because they are walking. Counting seems easy until people are moving. At 8:47, I noticed the first real issue. 2 litter patients moved with only 1 casualty card between them. "Where is the second card?" I asked. One medic patted his vest. Another looked back toward the training lane. Captain Voss saw the pause. "What's the holdup?" "Missing card." "We can reconcile at the tent." "No," I said. "You reconcile before movement or you lose the chain." His expression tightened. "We are losing time. You are losing accountability." The safety officer, Major Leland, stepped closer. "Captain, correct the card." Voss did. But he looked at me like I had embarrassed him in front of someone important. That was the moment I stopped being an evaluator and became an obstacle. I have seen that shift before. Hospitals, shelters, field sites, offices. Some people can accept correction until the correction has witnesses. Then pride takes over and starts making clinical decisions. By 9:30, the drill had expanded. A reroute pushed one litter patient through a wooded lane. A medical cart left too early. The radio channel crowded. One trainee wrote, "Returned," before the patient reached the tent because he had seen the patient start walking. I marked everything. Voss stopped checking in with me. The medics still did, quietly. Reyes approached me near the water point. "Ma'am, do you want actual times or simulated times on the handoff sheet?" "Actual first," I said. "Never replace what happened with what was supposed to happen." She nodded, then lowered her voice. "Captain Voss says you're slowing the lane." "Good." Her eyes widened. "If it cannot survive being counted correctly, it is not a good lane." "Understood." At 10:10, Specialist Miller moved from lane 2 to lane 3. I saw him pass the communications marker. Red tape lifting on his helmet. He gave me a small wave, like students do when they see the one teacher who explained the assignment. I waved back. Then three things happened close together. First, a simulated casualty began shouting from the wooded lane, drawing medics away from the command table. Second, a vehicle horn sounded twice by mistake, causing the recovery group to think the lane had closed. Third, Captain Voss received word that the brigade deputy commander had arrived early. His whole posture changed. Suddenly, the drill was not about learning. It was about finishing. I watched him tell the board sergeant, "Prepare final count." I looked at my watch. Too soon. The delayed evacuation patient had not been confirmed at the tent. One walking wounded had no destination initials. Specialist Miller had not been visually checked in from lane 3. I stepped closer. "You are closing early." Voss did not turn. "We are within exercise end window." "Not all roles are reconciled. The board says all 7 are accounted for." I looked at the board. It did. That was the problem. The board had become cleaner than the field. Who physically confirmed Miller? The sergeant at the board glanced at Voss before answering. Lane 3 marked returned. By who? He looked down at the sheet. Initials look like DR. Reyes. I turned to find her. She was across the field helping move equipment, helmet off, hair stuck to her forehead. I walked over. "Reyes, did you mark Miller returned?" She frowned. "No, ma'am, I marked Morales returned." "Show me." She pulled the grease pencil from her pocket, confused. Her initials were on 3 lines. One of them had been written beside Miller's roll number. But the handwriting was wrong. Similar. Rushed. Not hers. I had learned handwriting from years of medication records and disaster sign-in sheets. People think signatures are unique. Under stress, initials become fingerprints. "That is not yours," I said. Reyes looked scared. "I didn't write that." "I know." Behind me, Captain Voss called, "Final formation in 5." The drill was closing. The senior visitors moved toward the command tent. I looked toward lane 3. Trees. Orange safety tape. A low training barrier. A drainage cut beyond it, where rain had carved a channel through the dirt. Miller had not returned. I felt it before I proved it. That old tightening in the chest that says the count is lying. I walked back to the command table. The helmets were being collected by gear station staff. 5 went into a bin. 1 was set on the table because its strap was torn. Red tape folded at the corner. Miller's helmet. I picked it up. Wet grass clung to the rim. Not mud from the main lane. Grass from the drainage side. I turned it over. The inner pad was damp. There was a small smear of red training paint near the back edge. Could be from the scenario. Could be from impact. Could be nothing. Could be everything. Captain Voss saw it in my hand. What are you doing? Where is Specialist Miller? He sighed. We have covered this. No, you have filed it. The board says returned. The helmet says otherwise. He stepped closer. Ms. Harper, with respect, this is an Army exercise. We cannot stop every lane because civilian medical observers dislike an initial. With respect, Captain, this nurse has seen people disappear into clean paperwork. The words came out colder than I intended. The nearby medics went quiet. Major Leland turned from the visitors. Captain Voss's face reddened. All casualties accounted for, he said. I placed the helmet on the table between us. Then put this on his head. No one spoke. That is the thing about physical evidence. It embarrasses confidence. Voss looked at the helmet, then at the board, then at the visitors. He was calculating. Not Miller. The optics. I saw the exact second Major Leland saw him calculating too. The Major stepped forward. Captain Voss reopened the count. Voss stiffened. Sir, the exercise has concluded. Reopen the count. Voss looked toward the deputy commander. The deputy commander said nothing. That was answer enough. The board sergeant grabbed the radio. Lane 3, command. Confirm visual on Specialist Miller. Static. Then a voice. Lane 3 has no Miller. The field changed. Not loudly, but completely. Soldiers stopped laughing. Medics stood straighter. The recovery group turned. Voss reached for the radio himself. Check again. Specialist Miller marked returned. The answer came back quicker. Negative. No Miller at lane 3. I was already moving. Helmet in one hand. Clipboard in the other. Where did the training barrier collapse earlier? I asked Reyes. She pointed. Drainage side of lane 3. It was simulated. Was it reset? I don't know. Who checked the drainage cut? She looked toward the field. No answer. I started walking fast. Major Leland called for the safety vehicle. Captain Voss followed, anger replaced by something he was not ready to call fear. The grass near lane 3 was flattened in several directions, most from boots, some from stretcher movement. Orange tape fluttered between two trees. Beyond it, the ground sloped into a drainage cut about 6 feet deep, overgrown on one side. I stopped at the edge. Miller, Major Leland shouted. No answer. Reyes moved beside me, breathing hard. I looked at the ground. Broken grass. A boot slide. A scrape on the wooden training barrier. One red tape corner stuck to a branch. My mouth went dry. I crouched despite my knees protesting. Miller, I called. At first, nothing. Then, faintly, from below the cut. Ma'am. Reyes gasped. Captain Voss froze. I slid down the slope before anyone could tell me to wait. Dirt gave way under my shoes. My left hand caught a root. My clipboard fell behind me. I kept the helmet tucked against my side because I did not know what else to do with it. Specialist Evan Miller lay half under the collapsed training barrier, one leg twisted awkwardly, one arm trapped beneath a wooden panel. His face was pale, sweat at his temples, breathing fast but controlled in that way people breathe when pain is so sharp they are afraid the next breath will make it worse. He looked embarrassed. That made me angrier than if he had screamed. I'm sorry, he said. Of course he did. The injured always apologize to the systems that lost them. I knelt beside him. Do not apologize. I thought they knew I was here. I know. My radio fell. I know. I tried to get up. Stop talking for a second. He stopped. Good soldier. Bad situation. I checked airway. Breathing. Circulation. No obvious arterial bleed. Pulse rapid. Skin cool. Leg position concerning. Possible fracture. Possible pelvis involvement. Arm trapped but fingers moving. Helmet missing because it had come off during the fall and been carried back by someone who thought gear mattered more than the person. I looked up. Medic down here. Now. Stabilization board, splint, thermal blanket. No one pulls the barrier until we control the limb and check pressure points. Voss appeared at the edge. His face had gone gray. Is he alive? I looked up at him. Yes, because the helmet was louder than your board. The words were cruel. I do not regret them. Major Leland descended with 2 medics, including Ray's. She looked shaken but moved well. Good. Fear with training can still help. We stabilized Miller's leg, checked circulation below the injury, lifted the barrier carefully, assessed the arm. He winced but stayed conscious. We placed a collar because nobody remembered seeing whether he hit his head. We moved him onto a board with proper count this time. I made them say his name at each step. Patient name. Specialist Evan Miller. Status. Alive, conscious, possible lower extremity fracture, possible head impact, arm compression, vitals monitored. Destination. Treatment tent first, then imaging. Who has the card? Ray's lifted it. I do. Who sees the patient? Everyone around the board looked at Miller. Ray's answered, voice stronger now. We do. That was the correction. Not finding him. Finding him was rescue. The correction was making everyone understand he had never been a line on a board. By the time we carried Miller back, the training field looked nothing like a finished drill. Gear remained scattered. Vehicles half-loaded. Senior visitors standing near the command table. The deputy commander watched silently. Captain Voss walked beside the stretcher, but did not speak. No one clapped. No one should. A rescue caused by preventable failure is not a celebration. At the treatment tent, Miller was reassessed properly. His leg was splinted. Pain managed. Vitals stabilized. Transport arranged. He kept trying to joke. I ruined the drill. I leaned over him. No, you improved it. His brows pulled together. I fell in a ditch. And exposed a dangerous system, very helpful. He laughed once, then grimaced. Hurts to be helpful. Usually. Ray's smiled despite herself. The tension in the tent loosened. A little. Outside, the command conversation began. That was the part commanders liked least. The after-action truth. Captain Voss stood at the front of the command table with Major Leland, the deputy commander, and the observer team. The helmet sat in the middle like an accusation. I stood to one side, muddy from the drainage cut, grass on my sleeve, one knee throbbing, holding my clipboard again because I had gone back for it. People find comfort in tools. The deputy commander, Colonel Grant, was a woman in her 50s with a face that gave nothing away until it chose to. She looked at Captain Voss. Explain how a soldier was marked returned without visual confirmation. Voss swallowed. Ma'am, there was confusion during lane closure. That is not an explanation. No, ma'am. Who closed the count? I did. On what basis? He looked at the board. Reported initials. Colonel Grant looked at me. Ms. Harper. I stepped forward. The initials were not verified. Gear was returned without person-to-gear match. One helmet belonging to Specialist Miller appeared at the gear table while he had not physically checked in. The board was closed based on assumed movement, not visual confirmation. The field was silent. Colonel Grant asked, What made you challenge the closure? The extra helmet. That was all. No, ma'am. The extra helmet confirmed a pattern, early card marking, missing handoff, gear recovery without patient recovery, a returned status that no one could defend. Captain Voss looked down. Colonel Grant turned to the group. This is why we train. No one moved. She picked up the helmet. To find failure before failure becomes a funeral. The words crossed the field cleanly. Then she looked at me again. Ms. Harper, thank you for refusing the clean answer. I nodded once. Clean answers are often dirty. A few people looked at me. Maybe that was too blunt. I did not care. The after-action review was immediate. That was unusual. Usually people wait, soften, summarize, and let the sharp edges dull. Colonel Grant did not. She made every participant walk the error. Where was Miller last seen? Who recorded him? Who moved the gear? Who signed the board? Who heard the closure announcement and did not ask? Who assumed returned meant seen? It was uncomfortable. Good. Training should be uncomfortable when it almost leaves a soldier in a ditch. Reyes spoke up during the review. The initials beside Miller's number were not mine. Voss looked at her sharply. She held her ground. Good. Colonel Grant asked, whose were they? A young specialist, near the board, raised his hand slowly. I wrote them, ma'am. I thought he was with the walking group. Did you see him? No, ma'am. Why did you mark him? He looked miserable. Because we were closing the lane and I thought. Colonel Grant cut in. Thinking is not seeing. He nodded. Yes, ma'am. Then she looked at Captain Voss. Why did he believe closing the lane mattered more than confirming the soldier? Voss did not answer. Because everyone knew. The visitor timeline. The clean drill. The desire to finish. The pressure had moved downhill until the lowest-ranking soldier wrote what the system wanted to see. That is how mistakes happen. Not always through one villain. Often through many small permissions. After the review, Miller was transported for imaging. His leg was fractured, his arm was bruised, mild concussion, no spinal injury. Lucky. No. Found. There is a difference. At 14:30, I sat on the tailgate of a medical utility vehicle with an ice pack against my knee, pretending I did not need it. Reyes found me there with a bottle of water. You should drink. I took it. Good nursing. She sat beside me and watched the soldiers reset the lane properly this time. Actual counting. Actual verbal confirmation. Actual person-to-card match. It should not have taken this, she said. No. I should have noticed. You noticed when asked. That's not the same. No. She looked at me. You're not going to make me feel better. I am going to make you better. That landed. How? Never let a board close around an assumption. Never let gear substitute for a person. Never be embarrassed to ask where someone is. Embarrassment is cheaper than search and rescue. Captain Voss approached then. He had removed his helmet. His face looked older than it had that morning. I owe you an apology, he said. I waited. I dismissed your concerns because I thought you were overemphasizing documentation in a training event. No, I said. You dismissed them because I was a nurse with a clipboard and you wanted a clean drill. He absorbed that. You're right. That mattered. Not enough to erase the morning. Enough to keep talking. I am sorry, he said. Apology accepted, I said. Trust pending. He almost smiled, then realized I was not joking. It should not take an extra helmet next time, I said. It won't. Make sure it doesn't take a nurse everyone ignores. His eyes lifted. I will. Maybe he meant it. Meaning it tomorrow would be the test. By 1600, the drill restarted in modified form. Colonel Grant ordered it. People groaned quietly. Good. Exhaustion reveals whether learning took root. This time, the board did not close early. This time, each casualty name was spoken, pointed to, and physically confirmed. This time, gear was matched to person before being logged. This time, Specialist Reyes corrected a sergeant twice and did not apologize for it. This time, Captain Voss led her. At the final count, he looked at me. Not for approval. For verification. I looked at the board. Then the recovery area. Then the gear table. 5 helmets. 5 soldiers. 2 role players standing. 1 observer marked invisible. All cards accounted for. All present, I said. He repeated it on the radio. All present, drill complete. The words sounded different when they were true. Afterward, Colonel Grant asked me to attend the command debrief. I expected 10 minutes. It took an hour. Because real accountability always takes longer than the mistake. We discussed process failure, handoff control, premature closure, role player tracking, gear accountability, visual confirmation, authority pressure, observer influence, medical safety, board discipline, and the cultural problem nobody wanted named, the habit of treating nurses as support until their warnings became evidence. Colonel Grant named it. I liked her for that. Ms. Harper was treated as administrative friction, she said, looking around the room. She was the only person who held the count accountable to reality. No one argued. She continued. If your system requires a near miss before you listen to medical evaluators, your system is not disciplined. It is decorative. Captain Voss stared at the table. Major Leland wrote that sentence down. I hoped someone laminated it. At the end, Colonel Grant turned to me. Would you be willing to help revise the accountability lane for next month's exercise? Voss looked surprised. I was too. I'm a temporary evaluator, I said. Grant's mouth moved, almost a smile. Today, temporary saved us from permanent consequences. That was a good line. Commanders do love a good line. Still, she meant it. I'll help, I said. Not because I wanted status. Because Miller had apologized from a ditch. Because Reyes had learned. Because Voss might. Because 1 extra helmet should become a rule before it becomes a story someone tells after a funeral. At 17:30, I walked to the medical transport area where Specialist Miller waited for pickup after imaging. His leg was immobilized. His helmet sat on a chair beside him. The red tape was still folded at the corner. He saw me and tried to sit up. Don't, I said. He froze halfway. Sorry. Stop apologizing. Yes, ma'am, sorry. I looked at him. He winced. Stopping. I stood beside the chair. How's the leg? Broken. That was inconsiderate of it. He smiled. Yeah. Head. Mild concussion. Doctor said I'll be fine. Then listen carefully while you are temporarily sensible. He nodded. You did not ruin the drill, I said. The drill did what drills are supposed to do. It showed us where the system lied. He looked at the helmet. I thought they knew. I know. I heard them call in decks. I tried yelling. His voice caught. Only slightly. Enough. I tried. I believe you. His eyes reddened, and he looked away quickly. I pretended not to see. That is sometimes the kindest nursing intervention. He whispered, "Thank you for counting me." I looked at the helmet. I counted the thing that did not fit. Then we found the person who mattered. The next week, the lane changed. Not perfectly. Nothing changes perfectly. But the board stayed open until every role player was seen. Gear was matched to bodies. Walking wounded had to check in with names, not assumptions. Specialist Reyes was assigned accountability lead and became ruthless enough that several sergeants learned to fear her grease pencil. Captain Voss introduced me differently at the next brief. "This is Ms. Harper," he said. "If she asks about the count, stop and answer." It was not praise. It was better. It was procedure. By the end of the month, the helmet rule became official for that training site. No gear return without person match. No board closure without visual confirmation. No assumed return from walking wounded. No observer status marked by initials alone. And every drill ended with one sentence written in black marker across the bottom of the board. Equipment does not equal accountability. I did not ask for that line, but I did not object. The last time I saw Miller's helmet, it was inside the training office display case. Red tape curling at the corner, chin strap torn, a little grass stain nobody had cleaned off. Good. Let it stay dirty. Clean things make people forget too easily. Under it was a small label. Count again. Visitors probably walked past without understanding. New soldiers probably laughed until someone told the story. That was fine. Stories are how systems remember what policies flatten. One extra helmet. One nurse with a clipboard. One captain who wanted a clean drill. One specialist apologizing from a ditch. One second chance to learn the lesson before the lesson became a loss. People love dramatic rescue stories. Helicopters. Sirens. Salutes. Commanders shouting orders. But most lives are saved earlier than that. By the person who notices the medication label is wrong. The drain is slick. The patient's skin is too gray. The initials do not match. The board closed too soon. The helmet has no head under it. That is not dramatic work. It is disciplined work. Nursing work. Accountability work. The kind of work people ignore until ignoring it becomes dangerous. The army drill looked perfect. The commander closed the count. The board said everyone had returned. I said nothing at first. Then I counted one extra helmet. And when the field finally stopped pretending paperwork was the same as truth, a soldier who had almost become a training error came home alive. A clean drill means everyone comes back. Not just the paperwork,